be mute. I'm learning so much, so do mind me if you hear me speak less than normal.
That's what we're here for. But you know what? I just want to say, I love that point you made about the difference between what Brad's doing and consulting companies. Because when I listen to Brad, you are not playing armchair expert, where you're sitting on the side and saying to your client, you needed to do this, and this, and then you leave it to them to do it. You are the one who's rolling up your sleeves and implementing the strategy that you've suggested and taking responsibility for delivering those results, which is so, it speaks to the nature of the relationship that you have with your client. Why it's so much more than just a business relationship, you know. It really is. And I've heard you speak about it before, when you give your pitches, and you know, I don't want to call it a pitch because it's so authentic and it's so sincere that it doesn't sound like selling, which I think is the best kind of selling.
Yeah.
But you really, like, you're invested in your clients' growth and in their development as a business. And yeah, you know, I just wanted to bring us back a little bit to you as an individual, because that is something that fascinates me a lot in terms of getting into this journey as an entrepreneur. You know, you've been in this game for, you said, 8-9 years now, but you're only 26. You know, you're still a young man. So when you started this journey, you know, did you always want to be an entrepreneur, or was it something that you found yourself pushed into because the more conventional routes were either closed to you, or you just couldn't see yourself doing it?
That's a great question. So I think probably the best way for me to talk about this is talk about how it all started, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I actually met my business partner now in grade 9 of high school, right? You know, we all went to St. Benedict's, and he actually came from Redham in grade 5, and we kind of were aware of each other, but just never interacted, right? Until grade 9, when we just started linking up and started having conversations. And one thing that he had was he had this ambition and grit for making money, right?
Yeah.
He had a real passion about it. And me, I had the kind of technical knowledge to kind of put a strategy together with him, and we could actually build something.
Where did you
So
get that
our
technical
first,
knowledge? Let's start with that.
well, I grew up with you know a brother, an older brother that's about 6 years older than me, and an
Yes.
older sister, and I have a lot of cousins that are older than me. So just growing up, we were surrounded by a lot of technology,
Mm,
gaming consoles, computers. We were
mm.
learning how to use these devices just from the beginning on a basic level, and then over time, as experience, works, you just become more and more knowledgeable and more adept at it.
Yeah.
So I kind of knew exactly like how to go about learning how to build a website, right? How to go about learning how to post content, right? And
Mm.
so in grade 9, Alistair, he had this idea of starting a blogging platform, right? This blogging platform that allowed students across South Africa to kind of write about their schooling experience,
Right.
what they're going through, um, the complaints that they have, and a lot of the time you got rubbish that was being put on there because it was written by kids for kids, right?
Yes.
But at the same time, the platform had value
Yeah, of course.
because
Yeah.
it gave a space for people to speak about how they feel.
Yes.
And it actually started to grow. Like we were getting some more consistent writers, people requesting to be a part of the platform. And then we had to shut it down because we weren't making any money from it and we didn't know how to monetize it,
Mm.
right? We can't charge students a fee to write on our platform, and we didn't know how to leverage like Google AdSense, for example,
Sure.
right? So, if you were to ask me that same question now, how do we monetize that? That's a whole different story.
Yeah, of course.
But the version of ourselves back then didn't know how to do any of that. So I had to close that down. But that was our first taste of doing
Yes.
something.
Creating.
And so, Yes, exactly. So we were like, if it's this straightforward to kind of start something, then why not just carry on, right?
Mm.
So going into grade 10, we had another third party partner, which I won't name, but we started up another kind of business, right? A venture. And this venture was selling hosted Minecraft server space.
Wow.
So I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Minecraft or how to play it, right? But it's basically this game that you can build anything.
Yeah.
It's like a
You're like
sandbox game.
playing God with blocks.
Exactly. Or you can just survive. You can just try and survive.
Yeah.
And it's quite an interesting concept for a game. It's blown up over the past couple of years. But when it was first out there, you actually couldn't start your own server by yourself. Like Minecraft lets you now pay for a server, you can invite your friends and you guys all play on a server. But back then, if you wanted to play with your friends, you needed to connect Minecraft to a third-party server. You needed to take up some of that server space to host your world and
Yeah.
to connect it through a couple drivers and stuff, and then you can post
Yeah.
it online, and then people can start
You
coming in,
really
right?
had to want to play Minecraft. Like you really had to want
Yeah,
100
literally.
100%. And so that was the gap that we saw in it. So what we thought was, why don't we offer a service where we rent out server space and we help people set up their Minecraft servers,
Right.
right? And it was going well at some point, but then the third part, was he kind of flaked out on us, and he was the one that kind of had access to the server resources.
Yeah.
So we had to close that down at
Game
that point
over.
in time. Yes, yeah, and this was going into grade 10 and 11, and then Alistair and I decided to just focus on our studies, right? I foolishly, but I think,
Worked
life
out
has
right
its
now.
ways, but I foolishly I got a girlfriend that didn't exactly, do me justice at that point in time, and spun down a whole
We've
different
all been
rabbit hole.
there.
Yeah.
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 Oh.
And
Yeah.
so matric for me was not the greatest, but coming out of matric, Alistair and I
Yeah.
split ways. He
Yeah.
went to Cape Town, he studied at UCT. I studied at well, not a company, but a tertiary institution called Pearson,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
And about a year in, right, Alistair and I connected again, and he was telling me about this whole thing that he is doing, and it just so happened to be that I was trying to do the same thing, right? I
Okay.
was trying to start something where I could build websites for people,
Yeah.
where we could do a little bit of their marketing and things like that. And then he was doing the same thing. So we thought, why not merge the two businesses? Our first merger.
Merger. Mergers and acquisitions at
Yeah.
19.
Literally.
And so his business, what he named it at the time before it was even fully fledged, mine as well, his was Vision Creative and mine was Empire Touch, right?
Nice.
Looking back at it, it was like a little bit of a cringy, corny way that we named our
But
businesses,
naming
but
businesses is
in
so
any,
hard, dude. You're like,
it is,
it's
it
like
is.
naming a child, but you don't have the luxury of using your own name. You know, what are you, Brad Incorporate? I mean, come on, dude. You got to use those online
Exactly,
generators. Online generators.
exactly. So we were like, we can't have such a cringe name. Like we sound like every other creative agency,
Yeah.
right? So we were like, why don't we come up with a name that sticks, that doesn't tie itself to anything so that it can be diverse,
Yeah.
but also can be a little bit playful.
Yes.
And so that is when HoneyWhale was born.
Nailed it. Such a good name. Such a good
Peace.
name,
So
honestly.
we like to conquer the digital seas, but
Yeah.
we work hard for our honey. And that's the concept.
And that's
Like
so that's such a good
honeybees.
that's a
Conquer the
good
digital seas, but we work hard for our honey. I'm not laughing at that because it's ridiculous, but it is so clever and like it's hilarious. It's genius. Genius. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well
T, you were
done.
going to say something there?
Yeah.
I was just saying I love the name. I think business as well, like the name that you choose is almost like in my opinion, pivotal to success, right?
Yeah.
Because I just think it needs to make sense. A stupid name with a great business idea makes bad business. And that's just the reality of it. I often see, like, you know, young entrepreneurs start businesses that are named after the surname, or,
Yeah.
you know, something crazy like that, or registering a company that's like, you know, first and second name. It's so, I mean,
Lazy.
you lose the plot, right? And
Yeah.
I think it definitely decreases how serious people take you in the business world as well. So yeah, I think that's definitely
No.
visionary of you guys, especially at such a young age, and to come up with such a creative name as well is not an easy task. So kudos to you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, we got a designer over in Eastern Europe to kind of build out the logo for us. And they did a great job at doing that. So one of the first obstacles that I had to face was around grade 11, grade 12, my father had his first stroke,
Mm.
right? And this left us in a very dire situation from a financial point of view with my family,
Yeah.
where we didn't actually have our breadwinner anymore.
Yeah.
And so my mom, for a number of years, struggled to kind of keep everything going, right? And I had to kind of push for this business that we're starting up. But you know, when you first start a business, you aren't making money. It's not as sunflowers and sunshine as everyone thinks.
I mean, speak to that.
And
Like at that point, you were living off of canned tuna, and I think you said you were working out of a closet or something. Like, speak to that.
I'll tell you how
Yeah,
that works.
yeah,
I'll,
I'd
I'll tell
love
you
to
how
hear
that
this.
played out. So my brother, my oldest brother, he was also kind of getting into the entrepreneurial space.
Yeah.
He started a company with a couple of his partners, and they're doing well right now. They're over in the UK, but at that point in time, everyone was still doing it in their infancy. And I think
Mm.
this was an extremely tough time because you couldn't tell what the future was going to hold.
Yeah.
All you could do was commit every day to doing this one thing,
Yeah.
right? At one point, Alistair said to me that I got to move to Cape Town. Actually, it was an ongoing conversation ever since we left high school. Was
Sure.
like, you got to come to Cape Town. You got to come to Cape Town. We got to do something in Cape Town. We got
Yeah.
to try and make this work in Cape Town. And then I just thought, like, screw it, let me just go and do that, right? I moved to Cape Town with my friend Andre. He joined, and we rented out a small apartment. Actually, honestly, it was too big for two people, even bigger for one person, right? And Andre had picked up a job, and I had, gone fully into this business, right? Trying to also study on the side. But my mom actually she couldn't pay for my school fees anymore, and I I I found this out too late because I was in Cape Town and I went to campus one day and they just didn't let me in anymore because they said that we were so behind, or so
Wow.
our payments were in such arrears that they weren't going to allow me to continue the studies until we rectify that. And we couldn't because we were just in such a poor situation, right? So gone fully into the business, had to kind of figure out everything from the ground up: sales, the marketing, the actual service that we're offering,
Mm-hmm.
everything. But at that point in time, we had like no money. I
Mm.
moved to Cape Town with 1,000 cents behind my name.
Sure.
And oftentimes I found myself um, eating bread for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you
Mm.
know, not really being able to afford to go out firstly, but also some some foods that you honestly take for
Take for
granted
granted.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like peanut butter and bread
Yeah.
and tea was like a staple.
Yeah.
And for me to pick up chicken was a little bit of a luxury. And
Right.
so and so I actually ended up losing a lot of weight,
Yeah.
right? But still stayed committed to everything.
Yeah.
Andre had to move out, and this is why I had to struggle like that. Andre had to move out because the job that he was working at cut him loose, and he went back to Joburg.
Mm.
So it was me in that apartment by myself, and it was just a bit of a rough patch, right? When
100%.
you're faced with your demons like that, when
Yeah,
you push to your
Sure.
edge,
you find
I
yourself.
think you find yourself,
Yeah.
right? The version of myself that came out of that situation versus the version of myself that went into that situation, two completely different people. And
Mm.
I sometimes even forget the way that I was back then, right? But that version of myself that went through that really learned a lot about survival,
Mm-hmm.
right? Ambition and passion, and the path, which we always talk about, right? The path, the journey, the hero's journey,
Yeah.
right? And so this was my Uncle Ben moment, coupled with my father's stroke, because
Uncle Ben moment.
he's had he's had a total of about 3 strokes now, and it did do a lot of damage to the family relationships and finances as a whole, just because a lot of people depended on my dad and him falling off his own business and us needing to take up more time to kind of take care of him and things like that. It was
Yeah.
a huge undertaking for me to just leave my family and do this. So
Yeah.
oftentimes they would ask me, how are you even surviving? Like, are you okay? Is everything okay? And me going through that rough patch, I was like, I'm good.
Sure.
Yeah, because you had to be as
Don't worry
well.
about me.
You had to be.
Yeah.
There's so many
Exactly.
people depending on you. And you know, I just want to throw something in there. Like me and myself and T spoke about this the other day. The journey of an entrepreneur is so misunderstood in the sense that people don't get that when you're working for yourself, you actually harder on yourself than any boss would be, because you have to be, because the challenge is so
Yeah.
big, you know, so it's do or die, right? I mean, like you say, you succeed
If
and
you
you
don't show up, you don't exist, right?
exactly. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, please carry on. I don't want to interrupt.
No, no problem. So what we did then was my lease came to an end, and I moved in with my partner Alistair. He
Mm,
was already staying with his girlfriend in a very tiny apartment, right?
yes.
Like suitable for a couple, but not suitable for a third wheeler coming into this space, into a couple's
And
space.
it's always hard to
I
stay
have
with a
to,
couple.
100%. I'm a very easygoing guy, you know.
Yeah,
I'm also
sure.
very low maintenance. I don't require much to stay satisfied. As long
Yeah,
as I can do a little bit of exercise and focus on myself, I believe that that's all I really need, right? And
yeah.
I'm very thankful for them for allowing me to do that. And I'm sure if Alistair was here, he would say, well, that moment was pivotal, right?
Mm,
Because that was when we downsized costs on everything and worked out of one apartment, right? My room was our office. So by daytime, we would move the bed so that it could be an office. By nighttime, the bed goes down, the chairs go out, and it's a room.
yeah.
And that office was at the same time their closet. It was like a third room that had a wardrobe and things like that. So you could always go into it to get clothes and stuff.
Yeah.
I was like doing a hybrid, living out of a suitcase, living out of a couple shelves,
Yes.
and it was very tight, but it's heartfelt memories at this point in time.
Yeah.
We locked in one of our bigger clients, which is a brand called Jekyll and Hyde. I mean, Alex
Yeah. It's my
uses
wallet.
their wallets. They make leather products. And Alistair's father, his name is Ian. He actually runs a brand called Brando, and they brought us in to do Brando, and then they brought us in to do Jekyll and Hyde with Brando, right?
Mm,
So that was kind of our foot in the door. The business owner of Jekyll and Hyde, or the holding company, International Colors, he was very much interested in what we were doing, right? So he was actually our first investor who ended up becoming one of the directors on our board.